Hello and welcome to episode 1391 of The Sleeper and the Bus. It is Thursday, March 20th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by both Justin Mason and Joe Orrico. Gentlemen, what's going on?
My bracket is busted. Let's go.
Yeah, because you
Montana's
took
not winning enough. Yeah,
Montana.
I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Let me talk to the normal person on the show. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I cannot wait for the season to start.
Close.
The injuries just keep piling up. We're going to talk about them, but I just need the season to just start already. That's kind of where I'm at.
Did you guys get up for the games? Super early for you.
No, it's 3:00 in the morning. Like that. Like,
weren't you already up then?
No, dude. Like I was actually up late working, and I was all like, "Oh shit, that's right. Japan games start tonight, right? Like maybe I'll just like catch like the first few innings or something. Let me see what time they start." It's at 3 a.m. I was like, "Fuck that, I'm going."
Well, what time do you go to bed? I feel like you stay up that late every night.
I stay up till about 2 or 3, but I wasn't.
Joe,
I was
it's 6 for you, right? So, oh yeah, that's right. You were coming back. It's 6 for you. That's not too bad. But do you get up early?
I'm a bit of a night owl, so I didn't get up for the start of the games. There was the first game where I woke up at 7 o'clock, so my body just told me to wake up, and I watched a couple innings for the first game. Second game, picked it up in the last couple innings once I woke up. But
gotcha.
I stay up till 2, 3 o'clock most nights. I didn't want to sacrifice a whole night of sleep to watch a bunch of pitchers get blown up. Essentially, is what happened.
Yeah, I mean, they count, but they're still kind of spring training-y in that, they're not going to really push the starters too long. But it's fun to see.
I hate these.
I'm unmoved by it. Who cares? Why do you care so much?
It were like 2 weeks before the start of the season. Like, I just...
Big deal. Why does it bother you so much, though? It's a little goofy, but why does it bother you is what I'm asking.
I don't know. I hate the world, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, why do you hate it? You can be annoyed by it. I mean, NFBC, they're a free roll, right? If your guy gets blown up, you don't have to do anything about it.
I was in the Discord, I was talking to a few people, and I was like, there were a couple of them that are like in TGFBI for the first time. And they're like, so how do I position this? I was like, just wait. Like, if you're in a draft right now and like you see like all of a sudden like random pitchers or random
like Alec Vesia getting a save.
Yeah, like right, like so this happened last year in my main, and I did it right. I took Daniel Hudson in the 20th round, knowing I was going to drop him.
Yep.
Just for the like errant win he got in the season.
I might try to hit it this year. We'll see how it goes, but people are gonna be more keen to it.
Yeah.
I know that you were big on promoting that last year with your Daniel Hudson gambit. Maybe I'll run the Vesia gambit. It kind of just depends.
Or if you want a Michael Busch stolen base, right? Like, I mean,
John Birdie had a couple.
Birdie would be the better comp because Michael Busch is just regular.
Yeah, but Michael Busch you could actually hold on to. So
that's what I'm saying. So like, that's just a normal draft pick as far as I'm concerned. Birdie, I have zero interest in outside of this. Give me my 2 steals. Like he's a 2 steal and cut. Bush is just a standard pick. Maybe you raise him around.
I'm 5th overall in TGFBI because of Michael Busch.
Way to go. Way to go. I knew you had it in you.
Shohei Ohtani and Michael Busch, and I
knew you had it in you to get a top 5 overall. Well done. Right. All right, well let's be miserable. Let's talk injuries because they're coming nonstop.
I love injuries. What are you talking about?
If you've been listening to anything or reading my chat earlier this week, I said an update's coming. Glad I've been kind of holding it because more injuries coming. But no, I'm going to try to get it out. I'm going to get it out today. Thursday, the 20th. It's coming out, but it's going to have the Ryan Weathers injury. We're going to get to that in a moment. Let's talk about the first one. Jared Jones seeking second opinions on his elbow. The most recent guy to seek second opinions was Garrett Cole. Just saying, it's never really good when you're seeking a second opinion. It really does seem like you're just shopping around to hear what you want to hear, doesn't it, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, you never want to hear this. Like, this is, like I'm literally like pulling up my projections right now so I can just zero them out. It just sucks. Yep. Like I was literally in a dynasty league and a guy like inquired about Jared Jones, and now I'm kicking myself for being like, nah, I'm not trading Jared Jones. What are you crazy?
Well, you didn't have the foresight to know that he was going down. I mean, you could assume every pitcher, right? Maybe just assume that
in
always.
Dynasty, if you're not competing, you should just trade like every pitcher away.
Right.
So, like, and I probably should have, but my competitive window probably opens next year, and I'm like, yeah, it's just
such
a
bummer, man. He got hurt last year, but he came back. He was setting up to be behind Skeens all year. I was really giddy on Jones too. That's the real tough part, is that I really, really liked him. And now he's off my board because I only have NFBC drafts left, which of course is no IL. And so I will not take Jared Jones. I have no interest in possibly losing a spot or losing an entire player here. Joe, where you at on Jones? Maybe I'll give you the IL league situation, because I think we're all off of him in non-ILs. If you are in a league with ILs, how many do you need to take this shot right now? And I'll tell you, he's not going that cheaply lately. I'm looking at these last 9 main events here for Jared Jones. He's still going 113. Hang on, maybe I got to get... Okay, never mind. He is going 257 in the last 4 with a max of 420. So he's been tanked there. What about IL leagues? Would you stash Jones? Do you need more than 3 IL spots, Joe?
In an NL Central only IL league, to use Justin's joke from a couple of weeks ago,
yeah.
Maybe. But I drafted him Tuesday night. I literally drafted him as
brutal
an on Tuesday night. I did a 12-team standalone NFBC league. I figured, okay, keep the money in the league, not play for an overall, just for fun, right? Real lot of fun I've been having in the last couple of days since, because I'm going to be dropping my SP4 on the first fab period.
Brutal.
But yeah, I think he's done. Like, you don't, like Justin alluded to, you don't get the second opinion because the first opinion was you're fine. The first opinion is you need Tommy John surgery, and then you're trying to find somebody who will say, no, you can just do the rest and rehabilitation. The Gavin Williams, and a lot of people have done this the last couple of years. Gavin Williams did it. Garrett Cole did it last year, but I don't
feel
great
catches up to you.
Garrett Cole. So, like, I mean,
it's not
maybe you get a good 90 innings at the end of the season, or maybe you get absolutely nothing. So, like, I wouldn't even stash him in like leagues like Tout Wars where you have unlimited IL. Like, I just
but that
I mean, that why not?
Like the price you mentioned, Paul, he's coming down to like the 250 kind of area.
No. That was okay. So I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at the dots. 416, 372, 350, 329. Those are the 4 most recent dots here. I think I have an old one where the price was just starting to come down, built into that 257, because his min for Jared Jones is 115, his max is 420. So there's one of these drafts in here that's raising it up a little bit too much. He's the NFBC community has pushed him. He's in the 350s or later, which
it'll be available in your last 2 rounds of an NFBC draft.
Not interested.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Unless we get information, of course. But even then.
But even if you do, like, he's gonna
even
miss
then
at least the first 2 or 3 months of the season, and like you just can't hold a guy like that. So
no.
I just don't think it's worth the draft capital. I mean, if you're getting him the last pick in an unlimited IL league, fine, whatever. Like, but I mean, chances are that's just a wasted pick, anyways.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. This one could be the same. Ryan Weathers just breaking before we came on. Forearm strain, out 6 weeks, and that's 6 weeks before we're even doing anything. So we're looking at, 2.5 months probably to really get anything going, assuming it doesn't lead right into Tommy John. Joe, I'll start with you here on Ryan Weathers. Same exact situation here as you're looking at, because he was already going cheap, right? Jones was coming from a higher perch and came down. Weathers is already like a pick 250. You throw in this injury, it's just completely off the board, no?
Yeah, I can't take him anywhere. I was a little bit interested. I was talking with Lance Brozdowski last week, and he was highlighting a few different Marlins pitchers, Max Meyer, Edward Cabrera, before he's also dealing with a blister or something, I think. But the things that weren't captured in the projections, like the fact that they changed over a lot of their pitching coaches this offseason, up and down the organization, and that was something that kind of got me a little bit interested. I thought about drafting him, but I hadn't actually landed on him anywhere. Even if he didn't get hurt, I think there were still some concerns with Weathers in terms of the strikeouts, in terms of the volume, in terms of the team context for wins. At this point, I don't think you can draft him anywhere.
Yeah, no, I have some shares. I was interested. I was eyeballing Weathers, taking the shot. Big spring. He's got some alluring stuff. Dunzo. So I got him in Earth in the Texas version, which is Tarf. He gone. I'm cutting him this weekend. I don't need any sort of confirmation on anything. This is enough for me. He is definitely gone. Justin, I know you're going to stay the same. So you want to give a quick sentence and we move on?
I wasn't in on Ryan Weathers speaking with, so
Right.
I mean, for me now, it's just a matter of like he's completely off my board. But
Yep.
Yeah, just move on to the next guy.
All right, let's go back into
Wait,
the
hold on.
picture.
We got one more piece of
Oh,
news.
oh. Finally,
God.
somebody signed this guy,
Yeah.
and it's a team that's actually pretty good. I'm just stunned. I mean, he must have some issues that aren't necessarily just baseball related. But Alex Verdugo signs. He signs with the Braves, so they're going to get some more outfield depth. Do we think that this is just some nice depth for them, or is this an indictment of Profar on some level, or Acuna?
Could this
Justin, what do you think?
Profar's wrist maybe is a little more concerning to them than
I mean,
they're letting on?
Right, but he is back,
move.
right? Profar.
They signed Alex Verdugo to a $1.5 million deal. It is a major league deal, but they optioned him already to AAA. So I think it's more of a matter of like, hey, let's get you in baseball shape before we have you.
Profar's back 2 for 4 today. Sorry to interrupt you, but he's back. He's back.
I think this is just a depth issue. Like, and honestly, it's like, hey, like, yes, I know there's been a lot said about Verdugo in terms of like him having like an 82 WRC plus or something like last year. Like, this guy's a major league outfielder. Like, I mean,
where are the crap teams on this?
Yeah, like, I mean, Miami, you can't use him. Like, you know, like
especially after Sanchez.
Chicago, like, yeah.
They weren't more motivated to maybe look at him after Jesus Sanchez for a what'd you say 1 year? How much?
1.5. Like, it's
come
nothing.
on, man.
Like yeah. So I think this is just like, hey, this guy is too good to just be sitting out in the open market. At least as a defensive like player in one of the corners. Right. So I think that is mostly what this is. This may be like Jared Kelenic insurance. Like if Kelenic isn't cutting it while they're waiting for Acuna back, it also gives them the ability to kind of let Acuna come back at his own pace and not try to rush him. It just adds another depth piece to this roster. I'm not drafting Verdugo anywhere, especially because he was sent down, but someone to put on your watch list if he's, you know, heating up in AAA and looking like he might be able to break camp, or if there is an injury in Atlanta, obviously he would be the logical guy to bring up quickly. Anything
more to add to that, Joe, with regards to Alex Verdugo signing with the Braves?
No, I think it's smart. I think it's a smart move considering the worries with Acuna. Acuna might end up missing 2.5 months. Like we really don't know right now. So having another guy that you can kind of rely on, I don't know how much you can rely on him. Like the defense isn't amazing. The offensive profile is okay, but he's a serviceable major league outfielder. If they do end up having to miss Acuna for longer than they thought, if Profar does end up having to miss a little bit of time with the wrist or something, whatever it is. Michael Harris missed some time last year, so you just never know. It's a good piece of insurance, but yeah, even in the 50th round, I don't know if I would really want to draft him.
That'd be it. I'm not doing any more DCs. I'm in one right now. Actually, let me see. He's probably gonna go like the next pick if he didn't already. We're deep in this draft. Oh, he went. He's already drafted by somebody. Okay, so yeah, they might have caught a windfall. I don't think it was today, so somebody had already picked him. We're at pick 692, so that makes sense that Verdugo was already gone. And yeah, I mean it's not a bad move by Atlanta. Good on them to do that.
You know what annoys me about this though is I updated my projections and my and stuff for the Patreon and stuff, like, and literally the next day they fucking sign him, and now I got to go re-update.
They're like, nice try with those updates. How about you get Alex Verdugo in there? Thankfully, he shouldn't, fundamentally alter the projections all that much.
No.
All right, let's talk some starters here. Tier 9, again, just kind of loosely following ADP over at the NFBC. We're doing more groupings here. We're trying to get segments of guys, and I generally give the ADP of where they're at anyway, so don't worry too much about it. Now, when Joe and I did our episode, we had a tangent on these first two guys here.
Okay.
And so basically, I kind of want to bring you in to start with them, Justin, to get your piece in on them, because they've been two of the hotter guys of spring. Joe and I discussed them. It's Gavin Williams, Clay Holmes. Then we're going to go to Grant Holmes, Kevin Gausman, Carlos Rodon, Nick Pivetta, Yusei Kikuchi is the group that we're looking at here. Guys that have both their detractors and their proponents. Their proponents are super in on them. Their detractors are pretty against them, right? These are divisive guys here. But I think there will be some studs from this group. Who will they be? We will see that during the season. I, of course, believe that Gavin Williams will be one of those studs. Justin does not agree, but we did have a little bit of a tangent on the Holmes-Williams when we were talking Kodai Senga, because I think we were saying, we would take Holmes over Senga, and I forget exactly how I looped Gavin Williams in there, probably because they're going in a similar ADP. So why don't you give us your thoughts first here on Gavin Williams and Clay Holmes, two of the hottest spring standouts. Let me give you their ADP before you go. Gavin Williams, instead of Favin Williams that I keep typing, is going pick 150. Clay Holmes is going pick 174. And yeah, Senga's right there. And so that's why I think I brought both of them up as like an either or situation. So Gavin Williams 150, Clay Holmes 174. Where are you at on these two, Justin?
Okay, so you will, like as you mentioned, like I am a Gavin Williams detractor. It has nothing to do with the talent, though. I think the talent could be elite. And he has looked amazing in spring training. And especially with a walk rate. Like this is a guy who's really, really struggled with his control in the past. And he's got his walk rate down to 8%, which for him is like amazing. So and the stuff looks really, really good. For me, it's all about health. He's dealt with reoccurring like forearm, elbow issues, has yet to pitch more than like 76 or 82 major league innings in 2023, and I just have a really hard time projecting him to hit like 150. Now 140 of an elite Gavin Williams might actually be worth the gamble where he's going. So like I don't necessarily have him off my board necessarily. I just think there's so much hype on him right now that, especially as we start getting into this like last week of drafting, that you're really gonna have to push him to get him. He's one of these guys that's rising up the board.
No doubt.
There are other guys rising up the board that I feel more confident in their health. And so I'm more likely I'm gonna jump someone. It's just not going to be Gavin Williams.
Imagine being confident in a pitcher's health. That's really adorable after what we just discussed. Clay Holmes, 173, also surging up the board. I would not be surprised if there's some drafts where he goes ahead of Williams because his proponents are very hot on Clay Holmes, transitioning from a reliever into a starter, but doing so at age 32, which I think does open the door for him to kind of push a bit more immediately as opposed to kind of be babied into being a starter. We've seen some of these older guys come out and just immediately start throwing full seasons. Clay Holmes is also the opening day starter, Justin. What do you think about Clay Holmes?
Fucking crazy. If I'm going to take a gamble on one of these two guys, I think it's Clay Holmes. Okay. I really like the park that he pitches in. I like the offensive support he's going to get in New York. The stuff
he's never thrown 75 major league innings either.
And this is why I likely don't end up with him either.
I know, I'm just teasing.
But his ADP is like 170.
Sure.
Over the course of
it's a round cheaper. Give me a break.
I mean, that's
it's a round and a half. It's more. It's more. It's 25. I learned how to count, Paul.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that like Gavin Williams' min is 135, whereas Clay Holmes is, well, I guess 153. I guess is not that much different. So another round on the mins.
Be more hot after these two. Be more hot after these two.
I don't feel confident about either. Like
that's fair.
Especially in a volume type context. Now, if you're in a 10-team league or even like a shallow 12-team league, I totally get chasing the upside because if and when they do get hurt, like there's going to be replacement value on the wire. So I think in those kind of formats, if you're in a 10 or a 12-team league, you want to take that gamble. Go ahead. Like, sure. Especially if you enjoy watching them pitch, and both of them are really fun to watch pitch, especially Holmes adding that new pitch. So
kick change.
Yeah. So I'm definitely intrigued. I doubt, especially with me being like I play in deeper leagues. All three of my remaining drafts are high stakes 15 teamers. I doubt they end up on my teams. These are more likely guys that in like my auction on Saturday, which I'll be live streaming on my YouTube, I will likely throw out early just to see how much money I can soak up from someone else. But
yeah,
if
put someone to the test on their little fancy player there and see if they're really looking to get that guy. If I get to
pick 170 though, and Clay Holmes is sitting there, we're talking about going around guys that like also have massive question marks. You're talking about Taj Bradley moving out into a minor league spring training park. Reynaldo Lopez, who has had recurring elbow issues as well. Brandon Pfaadt's had a rough spring. Spencer Agetti, I love Spencer Argetti's upside, but like, does he have the command and control? I'm probably always going to pass up a lot of those guys for like a Zach Eflin, who would just feel like is a like steady Eddie guy that you can pencil in the middle of your rotation that won't hurt you. But
way higher than the market on Zach Eflin. It's crazy.
Yeah, like I am too. So like for me, like I'm probably passing those guys up, but I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
For me, like if you're a person who is like me, and I think like also Joe and Paul, and you draft a lot of teams, make sure you diversify, because these are guys that I'm not necessarily expecting are going to hold up for 170 innings, and you don't want to lose like your number 3 or number 4 starter on 7 teams.
By the same token, they're so easy to get everywhere, and that's why they end up being the high share guys.
Yeah, I completely understand. But you know who my high share guy is right now?
Who? Some
Royce
garbage
Lewis.
Bag. So there you go.
Yeah,
you should have at least diversified on the guy that doesn't get hurt. Literally,
I won't be getting him in my next 3 drafts. I promise you that.
There you go. Oh, well, the price is actually kind of interesting now. Joe and I, by the way, go listen to our episode from Sunday. Joe and I nailed it on exactly where he'd fall to, where genius is. Joe, you did speak on Gavin Williams and Clay Holmes. So let's go to another Holmes. Let's go to Grant Holmes. One of my favorite Nick-isms, Nick Pollock, the realtor, because he grants Holmes. God, that killed me the first time he told me that.
He told me that recently, and it may have been at Tout Wars. And he was all like, "Yeah, I'm really interested in the realtor." I'm like, "What?"
It's
the guy
so
who
good,
grants
dude.
homes. I'm like, "Oh God,
it's perfect."
So it is fantastic.
Absolutely perfect. It's one of my favorite ones.
But at the same time, I love
you hate Nick.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. No,
I don't have strong feelings on Grant Holmes, like I do Nick Pollock.
I just, he has some misses, as you're wont to do when you're going for all these jokes, right? So that's not me talking shade. Some of them don't land. I forget what he always used to call Jeff Samardzija like loose lips or something. I still to this day don't understand what the hell he was talking about with that. But this one, Grant Holmes.
Well, you don't know why he would call him that?
No, what was it?
Because what do loose lips do?
They sink ships. What the
So
fuck does that have to do with?
sharks.
That's so stupid.
I don't know if that's
that doesn't make sense.
That's my guess. I have no idea.
You're probably right. You have a Nick Pollock Dakota ring. That doesn't make any sense. Grant Holmes, that makes sense. That's just pure funny. Anyway, how about the pitcher, Grant Holmes, and what he does on the field? What a look he has, by the way. Kenny Powers looking MF out here. Harrison Grant Holmes. By the way, I always remind people, this is the same Grant Holmes you're thinking of, the prospect from 52 years ago. So if you're ever like, oh, another Grant Holmes. Nope. This is the guy. He's 29 years old, and he's finally making his mark. Is it going to be a big mark this year, Joe Orrico? Tell us.
I'm not sure what to project from an innings standpoint. Like, he's never been somebody who gets that high up, at least not recently. Like you mentioned, he's been around for a while, but we haven't seen him get really high up there in terms of innings in a while, under 100 innings in every year going back to 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know from a volume standpoint. I guess last year he did just exceed it when you're factoring in majors and minor leagues, just got over 100. So maybe you can get to like 140, 150 if he's able to stay healthy. But I really liked what we saw last year. 3.56 ERA. All the underlying metrics were good. 3.37 Sierra. He had nearly a 20% strikeout minus walk rate. The whip was good. There's nothing to really complain about here. The price is even pretty decent too. Like in the main event, it's going around pick 250. I have a couple shares, and I have no problem with him at that price, especially with the team context where wins are very projectable. If he wins 12 or 13 games, even in a 3/4 season, I think that wouldn't be that surprising. So
yeah,
I like him. I have no real complaints here. The stuff numbers don't grade out terribly well, but it's kind of the only thing I can say against him.
Yeah, I'm pretty keen on Holmes. My boy Dustin McComas took him in TARF, and I shook my fist at him, knowing I had ample opportunity to get him. He got him at pick 293, so that was kind of my fault for not getting Grant Holmes. But I do like him. I think he's got some good upside. I think he's going to be the guy that can stick. Obviously, things could change in April if they go divergent ways, where Ian Anderson is killing it and Grant Holmes is getting smoked. Actually, we have AJ Smith-Shawver in the rotation now. Has that been decided? Do we know where that's going to go with the fifth starters role?
I think they're still deciding. I don't know.
Okay,
so they may not even need a fifth starter for a while.
Right. Either way, it's not Holmes who's like on the chopping block looking at just a month of time. They've got him as the 4, and then whoever that is, Smith, Shaver, Anderson, maybe they just mix guys in for the few times that they might need a 5. That's a great point that you bring up, Justin, because not every team needs a 5. But I do think Holmes has a shot here to be the dude. And while Joe is right that he doesn't have a ton of innings under his belt, again, at 29, I don't think they're going to baby him. I think he could be their Raylo this year. Now, that might also mean that they treat him like Raylo, where they don't give him a 2-step, where he's lined up for one 8 weeks in a row, and everything under the sun, every reason you can think of, crops up to eventually prevent him from getting that 2-step. That could be the case with Grant Holmes. But either way, I'm willing to take the price point at around pick 240 or later. I'm not too concerned about it. Anything else to add about Holmes, Justin, before we move on?
He's an interesting guy because, like, when he moved out of the bullpen last year and into the rotation, his stuff actually got better. Now he has looked okay in spring. I don't think the underlying, the underlying numbers, I don't necessarily think are as good as his surface stats are. I mean, he's thrown 15 innings. He has a 1.76 ERA, but he's got a 5.63 FIP right now. Strikeouts have not really been there in spring, and he has been walking a few too many guys. So it's something just kind of keep an eye on. I was a lot more intrigued on him when he was going outside the top 300. Now that he's starting to creep up the ADP, I think he's still kind of at a point where you're not overly worried about taking the gamble on him because you're passing up on, the Sean Manaea's the world, the Max Scherzer's of the world, guys like that. But if he continues to climb, as I assume he will, then I'm probably out on Grant Holmes because I feel like you've given away a lot of the profit potential on a guy like Holmes, especially like Joe mentioned. It's not like he's an innings workhorse, dude, that you can really rely upon to get you to 150 innings. I think he probably caps out at like 120. So I'm not as keen on Grant Holmes at his current ADP than maybe I was a couple weeks ago when you were still getting him post pick 300.
That's totally fair. The way the price is going up, and I think that's just kind of the nature of this time of year as the guys get through spring healthy, then people will start to push them up a little bit. The main events, you always see pitchers get pushed up quite dramatically. So I understand being a little more tepid on him now that the price is 50 or 60 picks higher than it was. But I think unless he goes into the top 2, I mean, he's about 250. I think that's probably about where I have to tap out. That's where I have to tap out, though.
Yeah, because I mean, like, he's going right there, and like, I'll ask you, Joe, since Paul had to step away for a second. Like, he's going right there next to Jose Barrios, who has been a polarizing guy in the industry this year. Some people are like, he's garbage, and some people are like, it's a perfectly fine innings eater. Would you rather have Holmes or Jose Barrios?
It's gonna
you are a Blue Jays guy. I'm seeing that.
I know. I'm a bit of a pessimistic Blue Jays guy, though. I'm not always. It's not always sunny in Toronto, but I think it depends on how you've constructed your team. If you have a fairly safe team up into the 250 range, I don't mind taking a chance on the upside with Holmes. I think that the ceiling is a hell of a lot higher than it is with Barrios, but Barrios does provide a much more stable floor in terms of projecting innings, in terms of the production. I mean, if each of the last 4 years, 192, 172, 189, 192. He's made all 32 starts in every full season going back to 2018. So from that standpoint, he's pretty safe. The ERAs, outside of that 1 year where he was awful with a 5.23, every year he's a mid-threes ERA guy. But I think last year with Barrios was a little bit concerning. Like the BABIP was super low. Strand rate was really high. The strikeouts really disappeared down below 20%. I don't think that he is super safe, but I think that he is safer than Holmes. So if you have taken a risky build, if you have DeGrom and you have a bunch of guys who you don't feel that great about projecting volume from, I think Barrios is probably the smarter way to go in that situation.
How'd we get to Barrios?
I was asking, would you rather? Because they're going around the same spot.
For those not watching, I had to take a phone call, so my apologies there. The guys picked up
a lot
for
of
me.
pictures while you were gone, Paul.
Well, because I was like, Gosman's next. Wrong Blue Jay, dummies. No, sorry. That is I agree on the wood. I caught the tail in there where you're saying safe versus risky. Yeah. And again, even though I'm always beating the drum against safety, I agree. Barrios is pretty safe. He had the one bad year bounced back from it, and he's been punching the clock on mid to upper 3 ERA seasons. So yeah, I do think your build should dictate it. If you've got Clay Holmes, if you've got some riskier guys, don't take Grant with them. Take Barrios for a little bit more certainty of what you can get, assuming 180 innings. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I was going to ask like one more would you rather on a guy who's going a little bit ahead, but I think that Grant Holmes could catch in the ADP, but I think has like similar kind of risk reward kind of play, and that's Drew Rasmussen. Like going right there. Like I think I'd rather have Russ Musson, but maybe people are a little afraid of that, new park and I don't know, just this was a guy we were taking like top 70 before his injury. He
remember
came back,
his
was
surge
great last year.
Yeah.
Like, and now all of a sudden we're not even considering him as a top 200 guy.
Joe, I'll take this one first and then I'll let you jump in. In my next pitching update, and I say this in the McClanahan profile, I'm back in on my Rays. I've been waffling. I've been getting scared. I've been listening to other people, and hey, very smart people saying some things about that park, about the weather, and some concerns. I'm not saying they're invalid concerns. Give me the talent. And that includes McClanahan, Pepio, Taj. I still have a little concern because he just scares me in general, his volatility, and even Rasmussen, because I think the injury concerns and the volume concerns with Rasmussen are baked into a 235 price point, and I'm back in on my Rays. The only one I don't like is Boz, and it's not because of the park, it's because I've never really been a Boz guy. So between Grant and Rasmussen, it's close, but I think I'm going Ras because I'm back in on my Rays and I'm bumping them up. What about you, Joe?
I agree. I really like Rasmussen. I just don't know 100% if he's going to start the year in the rotation. I think he probably is, but they are not short for starters in Tampa. They have McClanahan, Bradley, Pepio, Zach Littell, Shane Boggs.
I didn't even mention Littell, by the way. Yeah, I said 5 guys, and I didn't even mention Littell. They could run a 6er.
That's because Littell's the one guy you just don't want to touch moving up.
Right. The most boring pitcher ever, but on a capable team, he can go 5 and dive and get you some okay innings. We're all 15-team guys, so he's not terrible. Maybe we shouldn't completely forget him, and I think his price is actually even cheaper. But yeah, you make a good point. They might manage Rasmussen a little bit early on, and I tell you what, in your shallower leagues, be careful or keep an eye out if they do manage Rasmussen and somebody gets frustrated and cuts him, because then you want to pick up in May, if they kind of go 3-4 innings here and there, and he just kind of is meandering along through the first month because they're trying to protect his innings, and then somebody cuts Rasmussen, I would dive right in, unless the numbers were bad, but they've been amazing in spring. I don't care about the 4.50 ERA, 37% swinging strike rate, 22% strikeout minus walk. So yeah, I'm in on Rasmussen, even if they do want to manage the innings out front.
Yeah. The only, sorry, Justin, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, the thing with Rasmussen in some shallower leagues, like if it's Yahoo, ESPN, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I think he's one of those sparps where he's starting pitcher and relief pitcher eligible.
Got to be one of the best ones, right?
I think he might be maybe the best, maybe Clay Holmes is the best. But it's
Clay Holmes probably the hot, because his volume is, I think Clay Holmes is unchained. If he's pitching well, they could get him to 170 innings. Like, he's unchained. So Rasmussen's probably second best because of some volume concerns, but that's a great call out. Sparps, shouts to CBS. That's where I first heard it, that they call him Sparps, SP as RP. And that can be very valuable in points leagues where you have specific RP spots. And it can be valuable in other leagues, roto leagues, where you have to have 3 RPs or whatever the case may be. And if you just want to go with heavier starters over saves, guys like Rasmussen can really benefit from being Sparps. And I imagine Grant Holmes then, both Holmeses and Rasmussen, all 3 of them are quality Sparps. So yeah, great call out there. Are we good to move on to Gausman?
I just have one last thing with
Absolutely.
With Rasmussen.
Go ahead.
That I think there's an outside chance he ends up closing games for Tampa this year. I don't expect it necessarily, but considering the injury concerns, considering the shakiness of Pete Fairbanks, how he always gets hurt.
Pete Fairbanks gets hurt? When?
Hasn't Pete Fairbanks, didn't he?
I'm joking. I'm sorry. Yeah. He's not used to the sarcasm yet, Justin. No. 1,000,000% sarcastic. Dude gets hurt every millisecond. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
For a second, I was like, hold on a second. Wait, is that not Pete Fairbanks?
Does Paul know who Pete Fairbanks is?
I like how you got you questioning yourself real fast there. Like,
he did. Like we were talking about before, Justin, before we started recording today. But I think with Rasmussen, with the stuff being what it is, 121 across the board. Every pitch grades out beautifully with the injury concerns, with the shakiness of the back. I like Edwin Uceta a lot, but If Drew Rasmussen ends up as the closer at some point this year, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
That's a good call out. And it wouldn't bother me, right? Like I would have to shift to get another starter, but if I get a closer on a good team, okay. Do you maybe, just for the outside chance, if you take Fairbanks, also take Rasmussen here instead of Uceta and kind of use him as the dual guy? No, there's been no chatter about this. This is a Joe Orrico original, but I like where your head's at. I think there is some viability to this as a potential path for Drew Rasmussen. So good call out there for sure. Let's talk some Kevin Gausman. You know, we're talking about a lot of guys that have risk, particularly with volume. This is one of the guys that doesn't. If he's healthy and upright, he's clocking $180 like it's clockwork. I mean, that's just what he does. 192, 175, 185, 181. And those are all 30 plus start seasons. In fact, are all 31 plus start seasons with a 33 thrown in there. However, last year was a little bit rough. I'm going to start with Joe, the Jays fan over here, wearing his Jays hat, and kind of figure out where you're at here. The splitter's been a little bit shakier, and that bred some of that volatility last year that led to a 383, 122. Now, don't come at me, not you, Joe, but anybody else say, I lost my league because of Kevin Gausman last year. No, you didn't. Justin and I are very hard-lined on that for people that just because they didn't get the top outcome of a player doesn't mean he lost you your league. Now, listen. If you lost your league by like a little bit of ERA, maybe I'll listen to it because he didn't play for a 383. But generally speaking, he still gave you a representative enough season. But where do we go from this point with 34-year-old Kevin Gausman?
I'm worried. I'm worried that he fell off a cliff last year that he won't be able to recover from. And I don't know that that's a guaranteed thing, but the splitter is such a volatile pitch. Nick has been talking about this for years. And we had several discussions over the years at First Pitch Arizona about it. And last year, it fell off a cliff. His stuff number on the splitter went from 107 down to 95, and the performance did suffer, and especially the strikeout rate. He lost 10 points on his strikeout rate last year, 31 down to 21. And there have been some people who said, and it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous drop. And there have been some people who said, well, in the second half, Gausman really figured things out. 4.50 ERA in the first half, 2.92 in the second half. And he also came into the year last year with shoulder fatigue. But then in the second half, the strikeout minus walk rate was literally single digits. It was 9.4%. His strikeout rate came down. The walk rate went up. So on the surface, the ERA was better, but it's, I think, because he had the BABIP at 236, the strand rate went up. Like his expected FIP in the second half was 485. I don't know that he's going to be that bad. I think he's probably a high threes, low fours ERA guy, but even in his great seasons, Gausman wasn't really helping you in the whip departments. That's always been a bit of a problem for him. So what are we going to expect now as he's another year older, as he's now 34 on a team that's not great? I know they've done some things, but they're not a great team. I wouldn't project 14 wins again from him. I think he's probably in the 12 range, might be splitting hairs a little bit there. But even with the volume being pretty safe, I'm really worried about what we're going to see out of Gausman this year.
Don't got to twist my arm. I feel exactly the same. So I'll co-sign it and move it over to you, Justin, on Gausman.
All right, so I think this is one of those scenarios that the old Matthew Berry, is
the hate's gone too far.
The hate has gone too far on Kevin Gausman.
All right, tell us why. Go ahead.
He's no longer the elite pitcher that he was, right? But that's baked into the price. You're talking about a guy who
that's fair.
Just straight up volume your way to victory. You have to kind of anticipate, hey, he's probably like more of a high threes ERA guy, like 3.7, 3.8.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also getting like 180 booked innings. Like,
yeah. If he stays healthy, right? Like he will not be brought out. They'll not manage him. Kevin Gausman is going for 30 plus starts. Booked.
And here's the thing, right? Like right now, everybody absolutely is fading Kevin Gausman. They're going like, oh, this guy is over the hill. He's bad. Like, look at the spring numbers. He's got a 7.71 ERA.
In fairness, I didn't even know he had that. I don't care.
Yeah. But I mean, some people are saying that, right? His strikeout rate is 28% in spring. His stuff is looking like the old Kevin Gausman. The velocity is up to where it was in 2023. The movement on his pitches looks like it did in 2023. I'm not saying he's going to turn back into that guy, but I'm saying it's on the table. Maybe last year was just a down year. Now they've added Andres Jimenez to that infield, which makes that infield better. We talked about like, hey, I hated this trade for Andres Jimenez, but I love it for the Jays pitchers.
Right.
I think Kevin Gausman's underrated, and he has been one of my more rostered guys because you're getting him for a really cheap price compared to
50 ADP.
I'll take that all day long. I'm taking him over all the other guys we've talked about right now.
Okay. I'm not fully sold, but you've made, I am fine with that. I think I have him ranked
go watch
above everyone. I do.
Start. Go watch his last spring start and tell me that doesn't look like the Kevin Gausman we've drafted before.
Okay. And as soon as you said Matthew Berry, like I said, I knew exactly where you're going. Hate's gone too far. 47 starter off the board. Projections got him closer to 40. It's only a 7-spot dip, but even the projections are saying, hey, maybe not so much.
And that's kind of what my projections say. Like, my projections aren't saying, like, hey, this is a top 20 starter.
Right.
But I think he's a top 40 starter, at least a top 45 starter, and you're not getting him at that price.
And he could spike better. If he jumps back to 3.16 ERA from 2023, there is even some upside here, which is always, I think, old player upside is always underrated. Yep. We only talk about upside from guys that haven't done it yet or whatever. What about a guy returning to a level, right? Nobody was saying about Chris Sale's upside last year, right? And he went out and won Cy Young. So, you know what? You brought me around a little bit. He might get a little 4-point jump in the rankings. Like I said, I got him 47. I'm not skyrocketing him, but I probably got to have him over this next guy because I pass this guy every time when I'm drafting, maybe just because I'm waiting for him to be the next guy on this team to get hurt. I'm, of course, talking about Carlos Rodon and the curse of the Yankees right now. Death has been, the Grim Reaper's been trolling around Yankees camp, getting everybody. I just hope Carlos Rodon and Max Fried can stay healthy. Let's talk some Carlos Rodon. Justin, I'm going to throw it to you here. I feel like this is a guy you've liked in the past. Am I crazy on that? Maybe when he was on your Giants, perhaps?
On my Giants, yeah. I mean, he was a guy that, like, when he was with the White Sox, I was like, just take the gamble, right? You're getting him super late. Then he had the breakout. The health is super concerning to me. And the fact that his velocity is down in spring now and he has had trouble commanding, controlling things, I think I'm pretty much out.
He's had an awful spring.
He's like, and it's not just a matter of like bad numbers. This is like
really, skills.
Yeah, it looks really, really grim right now, and I do wonder if there is something in the bathwater in New York right now. And
to hear Yankees fans say it, and listen, fandoms are ridiculous, right? Fan is short for fanatic. They hate the medical staff. Now, I don't know if it's just we have bad injuries, thus equals bad training staff, or if they legitimately do, but it's become a pretty persistent issue with the organization, no?
I think it is, but I also think this is a management issue, right? Like, sometimes sometimes it is like a bad training staff thing, and sometimes you are just signing guys who have got medical problems and you're letting that go. Right? Like, I mean, they went out and they let Garrett Cole opt out of his contract. And then they just gave it right back to him, knowing he had this elbow issue, right? Like,
that's crazy, by the way.
Right?
They panicked when they lost Soto. They panicked.
Yeah. Yep.
And like they went out and like, don't get me wrong, like Max Fried's healthy right now,
but he's not the healthiest guy.
But he's the guy who's had reoccurring elbow issues. So like, and maybe that is the medical staff. Maybe that is the medical staff like doing his physical and going, nah, he's fine. But like I don't want to necessarily put it all on them because I think just the players they bring in are higher risk.
Giancarlo Stanton. We knew that his body was going to break down when we saw him in Miami, right? That's not surprising that he can't stay healthy at this age. They gave all the money to Judge, which they kind of had to. I will say they kind of had to. He's Aaron freaking Judge. But like he's going to break down.
Yeah,
but he is going to break down, right?
Eventually,
I'm not talking like when he's 42 and it's obvious. I'm kind of always nervous, and I'm not saying that I'm fading Judge this year. I'm still drafting him very high if I get a high pick.
You're just talking about a massive body entering his 30s, like
that's all. That's all I'm saying about that.
Like, yeah. So I was intrigued earlier on before spring training games started on Rodon, but I still didn't pull the trigger just because of the plethora of injury issues. Now we're seeing him in spring. He is clearly struggling with something, whether it's injury or just not, being able to repeat his mechanics. I don't know, but the velocity's down. The command looks bad. The control looks bad. I'm just staying completely away from Carlos Rodon right now.
Joe, I'm gonna frame Rodon for you with an either or from the last guy you and I spoke about on our Sunday episode. It was Jack Flaherty, and they're right by each other. righty-lefty kind of versions of each other in terms of the persistent health issues recently. Both stayed healthy last year. Both had good seasons. Flaherty's was a bit better, but both had things to write home about last year. Start there. Rodon or Flaherty on a straight up, even up price, and then give us your thoughts on Rodon specifically, whether you choose him or not.
It would be Flaherty easily for me.
Okay.
The two of them. I actually, the reason I took Jared Jones the other day is because I got sniped one pick before on Jack Flaherty, which hurts even more now. But I really
Right.
like Jack Flaherty. I think Flaherty's fantastic. Going back to Detroit, reuniting with his pitching coach, I think there's a good chance he's not quite as good as he was in the first half last year, but we get 80+% of that. Rodon is very worrisome from a few different perspectives, and you guys have talked about spring. He hasn't pitched in a spring game in almost a month. February 27th was the last spring game he pitched in.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something, looking at the different game logs, and I checked a couple different websites to make sure of this, but the Yankees haven't pitched him since February 27th against Philadelphia, where he went 2 2/3, where he walked 2 batters, gave up 4 hits, 3 earned runs.
I think you're right, yeah.
So why aren't they pitching him? Is there an injury that they're worried about? I don't know. And with every pitcher in New York getting hurt, I think it's a reasonable question. But why have they gone so long without giving him a spring start?
That's kind of crazy.
February 22nd, and then 27th, regular 5 days, and then nothing for almost a month. So I don't know what to make of him, but I'm staying far away.
Yeah, he's moving down. I had him at 44, which I thought was okay, and it does kind of match ADP. But again, when you battle test your rankings, this is why I like to do a ranking set and then take it into some drafts. And if I see that I just keep skipping a guy, that tells me move him down. You're not being honest about where you rank him. And I always want to give people an honest ranking of like where I'm with a guy. And so, no, I do not take Carlos Rodon in the 40s.
They did name him the opening day starter.
Yes, yes, I did see that.
Weird.
So
yeah, like I don't. Yeah, but no,
opening day 2026. No, I'm just kidding. I hope he's not hurt. We're never rooting for injury. We're never cheering. Well, Justin cheers injuries all the time, but us sane folks, we don't cheer injury. Let's talk Nick Pivetta. We were actually talking a little bit about him offline before we started, and Justin was saying some heinous things about him. Unbelievable stuff. No, he was just saying it's kind of like Ryan Weathers, we're just kind of, it's coming, and it's never really come. And look, I started the year as a Pivetta hater. But I came around. And the reason I came around is because I realized I was going against a principle that I hold dear, which is don't underrate the guys with a low 4s ERA, but a great whip and great strikeouts. Those guys get underrated all the time. Now, you're building a rotation, right? So don't get 5 guys like that. Your ERA will suck. But if you've got a bunch of good ERA guys, a profile like this can go underrated. This was Joe Musgrove before he broke out. He would 4.15 ERA, good whip, good strikeouts. Nick Pivetta has 4.04 and 4.14 ERAs the last 2 years with 112 and 113 whips and 30% K rates. Like absolutely smashing. So I realized the error of my ways and said, you know what? I am being too harsh on him. Now, you guys also pointed out that this park move is not that good for his chief issue, which is home runs. Nick Pivetta is a home run guy, and San Diego's an overall better park. It is not better for homers, and decidedly so, because Boston actually suppresses homers a decent bit relative to what you might expect for it being such a nice place to hit, whereas San Diego actually boosts them. And again, relative to what you might think, given how nice of a place it is to generally pitch, it's actually, it's actually got some pretty good park factor for home run, 111, despite a 97 overall park factor. So all that lead up to say, Joe, is Pivetta ready to take the step forward that his proponents think? Because there's some guys that are really giddy on him, or are we going to get more of the same, which will still be valuable, but is the price also getting a little bit too high? So a little double-edged question there. Is he going to take a step forward? And are you willing to pay for it at the price for Nick Pivetta now that he's in San Diego and going off as pitcher 45?
Yeah, it looks like he's sandwiched in the main event between Flaherty and Gausman. I think he's maybe a little bit too expensive. Like, I've been a fan of his for the last couple of years, big time. Everything that you pointed out, the strikeout rates have been fantastic. The whips have been solid. The stuff improved, like the stuff on the slider in particular is just through the roof at this point. But the ballpark, I think, is a big problem. Like Nick Pivetta, every year of his career, there's not even been like 1 year where he just didn't allow a ton of home runs. It's pretty much every single season, like
Yes.
clockwork. the barrel rates are brutal against him in the 9 to 11, 12% range. The home runs are a problem. And while he might, gain a little bit in terms of the extra base hits that he allows in San Diego versus in Boston, I think those home runs are going to continue to be a problem. There's no real reason to think it's going to change. I don't think it's like a massive, massive difference in terms of the park factor, but unless he was going to San Francisco or one of those parks, I don't think we could really say this is going to be a big tangible change. The home runs are really going to go down. I think that's still going to be a problem. I'll still take him, but 145 feels a little bit rich for me. I prefer Gausman, even though I criticize Gausman and I'm praising Pivetta. I still would take Gausman slightly ahead of him, I think.
I don't think that's completely unfair. Again, I have moved him up because I had him like off the board to the point where I was never getting Pivetta. I had him in like the 60s or 70s. And again, I realized the error of my ways there, bumped him up. But your point about the homers, they've never not been there for Pivetta. Justin, are they going anywhere this year? Is it more of the same? Use our favorite analogy, Charlie Brown kicking that football.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kicking that football on Pivetta for 6 years now.
Mm-hmm. We've been trying.
So here's the thing about Pivetta. I think he is the perfect guy to waffle on. And by waffle on, I mean, it really just depends on your team construction. Do you need strikeouts? Because we're getting to a point in the draft where you're going to start running out of those, right?
Right.
We're going to talk about another guy here in a minute who is like probably actually the next guy we're going to talk about, who's like probably the only other guy that you can volume to like 170 to 200 strikeouts at this point in the draft. So I'm not a big Nick Pivetta guy, and I tend to get my strikeouts a little bit earlier. But if I find myself in a situation where, like, hey, I've waited on starting pitching and I need to catch up on strikeouts, Pivetta actually fits that build if I've got pretty strong ratios. So for me, this is a complete roster construction issue that I don't have a problem with people taking him right here. I just don't want to put myself in the situation in a draft where I'm at pick 150 and I need strikeouts really, really badly. If I've done that,
so you have to take him.
Yeah, because there is a ton of risk. And the one thing we haven't even mentioned is Nick Pivetta hasn't been the healthiest guy in the world either.
Bingo. Like that was my next point.
He hasn't broken 150 innings since 2022 in a given season. So to me, like, I think you are kind of putting yourself in a really bad position if you need Nick Pivetta on your team. So I'm hoping I don't end up with Nick Pivetta anywhere. And to be quite honest, if I get to this point, I will literally just take the next guy, even though I'm.
You say Kikuchi, by the way. Yeah, we'll bring up Kikuchi here because he is the next guy. I'm pretty nervous about him too. I'm just not a fan of either of these guys that much. But Nick Pivetta and Yusei Kikuchi are kind of a righty-lefty version of each other, where again the proponents love them and will tell you they'll sing their praises to the heavens. But those that don't like them say, what am I looking at here? Like, yeah, there's some value. They're not worthless, but they're both homer machines. They're both strikeout machines, sure. But Kikuchi doesn't even give you the whip that Pivetta does. At least Pivetta been giving you that dope whip the last 2 years. But he does trade it off for some innings. Kikuchi does 168 and 176 the last 2 years. So that is nice. Give us your deeper thoughts a little bit on Kikuchi here going to LA, Justin. We talked about this too. Tyler Anderson forgetting how good he was with the Dodgers when he went to the Angels, even though he was so close, right? He was right there. Why can't you just call up Mark Prior and figure it out? Will Kikuchi forget what he learned from Houston for that nice second half now that he's going to LA? Do they do the Men in Black zapper thing?
Yeah, I think
your memory.
I mean, Tyler Anderson was so close to the Dodgers, after moving to the Angels. He could have just sent a bike messenger. He didn't even need to phone call it in. Like, he could have taken a cab over there and been like, hey, what did I forget?
Yeah.
Hey, when I was packing up, I forgot my talent. Can I grab that real quick? So, if Nick Pivetta is your guy of trying to, Charlie Brown trying to kick a football, Kikuchi's definitely been mine over the course of his career in the major leagues. I have always been a Kikuchi guy, and last year I completely jumped off. Made me feel a little foolish in the second half when he really seemed to put it all together. I just don't know that is what we're going to get. And spring has been really weird.
Yes.
He all of a sudden can't find the zone, but he's still getting a crap ton of swing and misses. He has added a sweeper, which is interesting. I think for me, again, this is very similar to what I just said about Pivetta. Is if you need strikeouts, this is probably the guy I target around pick 150. I just really hope I'm not in a position where I need that at that point. Now, and I've also been in a lot of drafts where he just drops, where all of a sudden, like, you're getting to pick close to pick 200 and Kikuchi's still sitting there. In that case, I'm jumping all over him. But we're talking about an Angels team that likely is not going to be very good. I think the win potential is going to be fairly low for Kikuchi. He is kind of unsteady from start to start because he has trouble repeating those mechanics. But when Kikuchi's on, he can be unhittable. And I don't mind taking that gamble, especially in a shallower format, 10 or a 12, as a guy who's like, your SP6. Like, I think that's a perfect place to take a Kikuchi. I think in a 15, I'm probably staying away unless I'm in a bad roster construction issue.
Bad roster construction, or maybe I've built up some depth where I'm not relying on Kikuchi quite as much. I have 4 or 5 starters ahead of him, or 4 starters and 2 good closers. I'm with you. And you mentioned that, I've been more of a Pivetta guy over Kikuchi, but they aren't that different. And you've been more of the Kikuchi guy. Joe, where do you come out with Kikuchi? Is it just lefty Pivetta, and you have similar thoughts?
That's an incredibly accurate way to put it. That he is a lefty Pivetta. That totally makes sense. The only thing I'll push back on is that I do think he started to figure it out in Toronto a little bit before the trade.
Okay.
If you look at his stats, and I say this as a Blue Jay guy who probably watches more Toronto games than any other team, but he had 130 strikeouts and 115 innings with the Blue Jays. The 4.75 ERA jumps out at you, but he had a 3.66 FIP. I think he was just a little bit unlucky in Toronto, and things kind of just came together beautifully in Houston. 2.7 ERA, 0.9 WHIP. Like, he was just fantastic. But I do think some of that started before Houston. So I think he can carry it over, because we have seen this version of Kikuchi a couple times. Like, he was on the Cy Young ballot in 2020. Was it last year? Did he get Cy Young votes last year?
Yeah, it was last year.
He was ninth. He was ninth in Cy Young voting last year.
Cy Young 9 for that hot run that he had with Houston. Wild. Like, he really turned it on, and everyone said, "Hey."
And that was when they really needed it too, right?
Right, right. He was a savior for them.
Yeah.
I think he's decent. I have no problem taking a chance on him, but that lefty Pivetta thing is pretty perfect. Big strikeouts, home run problem. Team context is better for Pivetta, so maybe that's where I'd give him a slight edge. I think he can maybe get more wins from Pivetta, but they're the same guy.
I do like Justin's call out, though, that Kikuchi can fall in drafts. And then if you really start to see him in that 170s, 180s, which we don't really see from Pivetta, his max is 168, Kikuchi's is 176, and that's very recent. I've seen it go as late as like 182. I've seen Kikuchi in the 180s. And if he does drop, then I do think he becomes more appealing, of course, because the price is lower. All right, let's talk the Rays. We hinted at some Drew Rasmussen talk. I mentioned how I'm feeling, where I'm pivoting. I'm back in on the Rays here. And sorry, Zach Littell, you didn't make this grouping. It's Pepio, Bradley, Boz, and Rasmussen, because we already talked McClanahan a few episodes ago. And like I said, I came in strong, backed off the whole group, because the park is a valid concern, by the way. I'm not saying like, oh, now all of a sudden I don't care about it. I'm just like not letting it dictate my departure from this talent. And I forget the exact details, which makes for super sick podcasting. But the way they set up the schedule, they've got them situated to try to avoid some of the worst weather periods of Florida.
Playing a lot of their games at home early.
Right. So they're trying to account, because I had heard something, and I think it was from Todd Zola, to give credit, where I first heard it from, was like, well, what if they end up getting pulled after 2-3 innings because the heavens open up and it lasts for an hour, right? And that's usually that cutoff. If it's an hour rain delay, that's when you know, like, this is going to go poorly, and the starter might not return. And we know the Rays generally are very cautious with their starters. They would probably even move it to 45 minutes. Like I said, I threw all that out. I respect that those are some concerns about the park. Back in on this group, except for Shane Boz. Sorry, Shane Boz. I loved you at the Arizona Fall League 52 years ago, but I just haven't been in since. Pepio, Bradley, Rasmussen, I'm in on all of them. Take it how you want it with the quartet here, Justin. Is this a group you like? Do you like some better than others? Should I be in on Boz? What do you got for the Rays?
I think you should be on Boz a little bit, but I do have issues with all these guys going to this park. This park scares me. I also don't think the Rays are very good. So
What?
I don't think they're going to be as bad as they were last season.
Yeah.
But I think this is still kind of a transition year, and that division is absolutely loaded with fantastic offenses.
They were 80 and 82 last year, though, so they're going to be a plus 500 team if they're not that bad.
I didn't even realize they were that high in the.
That's the thing; they don't really bottom out anymore. Like they have so much talent.
Boz is an interesting guy to me. Now,
okay,
he's looked really bad in spring, so I kind of give a little caveat there. But prior to this spring, he had a lot of time off because of the injury. Came back last year. The strikeouts didn't really come back, but overall, like he was a very effective pitcher when he was on the mound. And I think he can be that kind of guy with more volume this year. I am a little worried about just the amount of walks we've seen in spring. He's got an 11% walk rate, and he's never been a double-digit walk rate at any point before. So I have to actually kind of go and sit down and watch a start here in a little bit and see, is there kind of a reduced velocity issue going on? Is he hurt again? Because he has been a guy who's been hurt and kind of babied by the Rays. But I felt like this was finally the year that maybe Boz would be let loose a little bit, being, that he's going to be 26 in June. At this point, it's time to kind of see what you got in the kid. But yeah, I'm a little worried about how shaky the spring has been, the move out to Steinbrenner Field. Pepio's a guy I feel like I start to get in on, and then I kind of jump back, and I start to get in on, and I kind of jump back.
What pulls you back? What pulls you out?
The lack of volume. Now we did see
he
him
threw
make
$130 last year, though.
Yeah, we saw him make 26 starts last year. He's been fine in spring. Nothing that I'm like jumping for joy over,
right,
or scared about. I just worry about that park. And, I think the only guy that I've been really kind of targeting in my drafts from the Rays is Rasmussen. I just think that his price is so low. His stuff was so elite when he was coming up, and he looked so good in his kind of short stints last year that I felt like, okay, they get to kind of take the reins off. I think Rasmussen is the dude everybody should be targeting in drafts, and I feel like he's the forgotten guy.
He is Littell's technically the forgotten guy, but amongst the high potential guys, Rasmussen is the cheapest one at pick 233. You got Boz at 204, Bradley at 183, Pepio at 156. So, Pep is a little bit more expensive. So if you have some reservations, go ahead.
I will say Bradley is the one that I get the most confounded by.
Same. Because I want to love him.
I do. And like there are moments. So I watched his start, I think it was against Toronto about 2 weeks ago. And like the first two batters, I was like, holy shit, it's happening. It's here. It's the Taj Bradley breakout season. And then all of a sudden he fucking lost it. And like he started walking guys and leaving stuff.
That's his starts. Like if you've watched him consistently in season too.
That is exactly who Taj Bradley is. And so like he is like some guys are like oh, start to start, they're gonna be inconsistent. Taj Bradley is inconsistent from pitch to
inning to inning.
Yeah, yep. And it is so frustrating. And it was like one of those things where it was kind of just a reminder of who Taj Bradley is, which is a guy with immense talent that is not fully polished yet. I do think that at some point Taj Bradley figures it out, especially in the Rays organization, because they're such a good development organization. But I'm not paying the price on it. I can't. So I'm pretty much out on all the Rays except for Rasmussen, I guess, is the Cliff Notes version of that.
Well, like I said, I'm back in on Pep. I'm in on Ras, not really in on Boz, and I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out on Bradley. And I will say, I'm going to use it like we've been saying for a couple of these other guys. It'll be a situational decision for him. He's picked 183. He goes in between Lugo and Nathan Eovaldi, right? And Nathan Eovaldi is not like some bankable volume guy, but he is a what you see is what you get. Like, you know what you're going to get for the innings that you get Eovaldi. Meanwhile, Lugo is more of a bankable innings guy. And I think it's just going to depend what I need in that area. Can I shoot some upside potential? Do I have a few kind of like bankable dudes already? I'm going Bradley. Have I gotten, Gavin Williams, some other guys that are a little bit risky? Probably going to go Seth Lugo at that point, right? I think that is a decision point for me between Lugo and Bradley that I'll have to make based on the team construction that I have at that point. So, okay, good call there on the Rays. Rasmussen and a little bit of Boz is your only real interest there. And by the way, I'm still all in on Pepio.
And I'm not out on Pepio. Like, Pepio's got really good stuff. I just worry about that park, and I think for me there's always somebody who is like a Pepio stan in a draft, and that's just not going to be me. And so I don't think I'll end up with Pepio, but like I don't think I have him like super low on my ranks or anything. I just think that there's always going to be like I've got Pepio for 145 innings, a 3.85 ERA, a 1.16 WHIP, 149 strikeouts. Like that's more than a strikeout an inning. That's a mid to high 3s ERA, a good WHIP. Like it's totally fine, but there's always somebody in a draft that loves Ryan Pepio more than
that'll be me.
Yeah,
that will be me in a lot of drafts. And Joe's raising his hand too. So why don't you get in on these Rays here? Take it as a group. How do you like it? Respond to anything that Justin said. Do you like one more than the other? What's up with this quartet of Rays for you?
So I'll talk about the team as a whole at first because I have a fundamentally different opinion than Justin does. I think
about how good they're going to be.
I think they're going to win the American League East, and I don't think it's going to be that close.
I mean, I think it's going to be close, but I'm with you that they're like fully in the mix for the division.
So just breaking down the rest of the division, the Orioles refuse to invest in themselves.
Cool pitching.
They refuse to trade for pitchers, and losing Grayson was devastating.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the pitching is a huge, huge problem in Baltimore that's going to cost them a playoff spot. The Yankees, refresh your page and see who the recent injury is because there's probably somebody. The hits keep on coming. The Red Sox have a sneaky bad lineup. The bottom half of the Red Sox lineup is not great. The pitching staff, and I don't think that's necessarily a hot take. Like once the young guys come up,
I feel you.
Maybe I'll feel differently, but Connor Wong, David Hamilton, Cedane Rafaela, Abreu has some promise, but Trevor Story, we don't know what he's going to look like. Cassis has described the feeling of swinging as a car crash taking place in his body.
Like that.
Rafael Devers has bad shoulders. The lineup is very risky. And then my Blue Jays, who I don't think are terribly good. I think that there's a chance that they could maybe be a 500 team, but I don't think
spitting right now.
I don't think the American League East is as strong as it's been in several years, especially because of all the injuries that have come in this preseason. So I think Tampa has a chance here. Like you mentioned, they were about 500 last year. They never seem to go away. They're a very pesky team. If they won 94 games and won the division, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And then the lineup, we're not talking hitters, but Caminero, all those lefties benefiting from that ballpark.
Brandon Lau, baby. I'm all in on Brandon Lau.
And Josh Lowe. Too, for me. Like I'm in on the Rays. Now, in terms of the pitchers, I have kind of varying opinions on them. I think we can all agree Zach Littell is kind of the odd man out here. But
that guy's taking a beating in this combo.
I hope he doesn't.
Zach Littell's like, I've been listening for years.
I like these guys, dude. I'm just going out there doing my best as a fifth starter, you jerks.
And he actually wasn't bad last year. Like we're poo-pooing him, and there was times when he was serviceable in 15-teamers. I'll give him that. Like he wasn't awful.
Right.
But I think Ryan Pepio is the main target for me here. 130 innings, 26 starts. I think you can probably look at the projections. Steamer 165, a couple of them in the 150s. Even if I get about, we were talking last week, Paul, that qualified starter threshold,
162.
Yeah, 160 odd innings, I think is doable from him. The ERA was very good. The WHIP was 115, and I love looking at WHIP in terms of projecting for future seasons. 17.5 strikeout minus walk rate. 37 on the hard hit, so he doesn't allow a ton of hard contact. The stuff grades out very well. 5 pitches that grade out as at least average, 107 overall. I think Pepio's fantastic. Like I love Ryan Pepio. I worry a little bit about the ballpark in general for all of them. Sure. He's had a little bit of a home run problem historically, 1-3 homer 9 for his career. Don't think he definitely benefits from that ballpark, but I think he's really interesting. Shane Baz, I've been a Shane Boz guy on and off, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt coming back from the injury last year because the performances were still very strong. I think the first few starts were a little bit shaky, but he ended up with a 3.06 ERA and a 1.06 WHIP. I'm kind of thinking the strikeouts are going to bounce back maybe to that pre-surgery 25% level, but I'm admittedly not as interested in him. And then Taj Bradley, man, like there is a great pitcher inside of Taj Bradley. I just don't know if it's going to come this season or if it'll be 3 years down the road when he eventually figures it out.
He's still just 24 too, right? Like we're being, we're pointing it out like that, it's been a little while that he's been in our consciousness, Taj Bradley, but that's just because he's very young. And so
he
like
was 17
might,
years old when he came up. Yeah.
Yeah. It might take another year of kind of ups and downs. And then even next year, so I'm a long way from quitting Taj Bradley. I'll tell you that.
He's more for me in a shell, like and the price kind of isn't really indicative of this, but like I think he's more of an away streamer for me a lot of the time. When he's pitching at home, I'm going to be a little bit terrified of what Taj Bradley's going to look like. Now, he's not being drafted in a place where he's a platoon guy, but for his career, Taj Bradley has a 1.67 homer 9. That's not probably going to play well in humid Yankee Stadium.
No.
So I'm a little bit worried about Bradley, but I think the main target for me here is Pepio. There is some varying interest in Bradley and Boz, and in some leagues I've drafted them, but I think Pepio is kind of the main target in the staff for me here.
I'm with you. I love Pep. I'm getting a little Pepio in my Stepio, and so I'm really hoping that he can take. And what's wrong with that, Nick? I just need a podcast with Nick Pollock. He would have appreciated that. Yeah, I'm in on that group. And then Rasmussen, do you have any thoughts on him, Joe? You didn't mention him. You like him at 230?
Just kind of what I mentioned earlier. Like I do like him, but I like him.
Oh yeah, we did talk about him.
A potential hybrid. So like even if he's not a starter, maybe he ends up getting some good quality innings in relief. Like if you look at what he's done,
give him an opener. Give him an opener. Don't crochet him. Give him an opener. We've been trying to recreate the Ryan Yarbrough dream season with the Rays ever since, and no one's ever come close. They haven't done it with anyone for more than like a game or two since. But I'm just like, if Ryan Yarbrough could do that, and no shade, he's carved out a nice career, decade-long career as a lefty, but he ain't got the talent of Rasmussen. If they could do it with somebody like Rasmussen or even Bradley, I know Bradley's a traditional starter and they should keep traditionally starting him, but if they did it with some of these high-end guys, could you imagine? And this is what I'm talking about, is the rookie season for Ryan Yarbrough, 2018. He got 16 wins, 38 games, 6 starts. He was a classic follower as we know it today, and like the best follower we've ever seen. And he netted 16 wins with a 3.91 ERA and a 1.29 WHIP.
You know who they
have to be that good.
You know who they should do it with?
Zach Littell.
No.
No, Boz.
Jesus.
Not a guy we've mentioned.
Oh, okay.
He's
go
not
ahead.
on the road. Mason Montgomery is who they should.
Ooh, that's a good call. Yeah, I can get behind that.
Like, let him go 2-3 innings after one of these starters goes 4, and just like, I could see it happening because Mason Montgomery's stuff is
nasty.
I think everybody kind of forgets, like, he was like a pitching prospect of note for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like now he's kind of just stuck in the middle of his bullpen. He's one of their 3 lefties. Like I could, like, in all these guys that we've talked about are righties, right? McClanahan's the only lefty in the rotation. So like I could see him like following a Taj Bradley, following a Pepio, and just like getting a bunch of sneaky wins.
No, that would be pretty dope. Mason Montgomery is a good call for that. So there you go. There's the Rays. We've got some good feelings on them. We each have our own guy that we like a bit more than the group, but it'll be interesting to kind of see how they handle humid Yankee Stadium, as Joe called it, because that is a good way to put it. That's what it's going to be. It's modeled after that, and it's in freaking Florida. All right. We got a little 5-person tier here that we're going to close it out with. And again, another array of guys. We got 2 guys that are kind of innings eater workhorse types, a couple upside guys. And then what do we do with Raylo? We're going to start with him, Reynaldo Lopez, then Brandon Pfaadt, Zach Eflin, Seth Lugo, and Nathan Eovaldi. Now, I am a longtime Raylo fan, Reynaldo Lopez. And that fandom is the only reason I had him last year. I wasn't keyed in on something special. I the only credit I'm taking for it is that it benefited my teams. I was not like, guys, this is your dude this year. I'm like, if you want to ride with me, you know how I feel about this guy, and let's ride. He's the last pick, or in the case of one of my leagues, he was the first week waiver pickup. However, as we mentioned earlier, I forget who we were talking, maybe Grant Holmes, the spring has sucked. It's been rough. And do we put any stock into that and say like, okay, maybe this was a 1 year type of special thing for Raylo? Or is it just, hey, he's kind of an older dude now, right? Like he's not a baby. He's 31 years old and a bad spring is no big deal. Justin, what are we doing with Raylo coming off of his ugly spring that is following his beautiful breakout season back in the rotation?
Okay, so like Joe mentioned with Carlos Rodon, like he hasn't pitched since like, the end of February or something like. Reynaldo Lopez hasn't pitched in a spring game since like March 7th.
Classic Raylo getting pushed back.
And when he did pitch, like you mentioned, it did not look good. It was really bad. And when we're talking about really bad, we're talking about a negative K minus BB.
Woof.
Like it was a 9% K rate and a 12% walk rate. And now he has not pitched in a spring training game since then. I'm out. Like this is a guy I was already out on because of the elbow issues last year. He didn't finish the year on the mound, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
So like, I want to see guys finish the year out on the mound. I want them to come in.
He had one inning on September 30th, and then did he pitch in the playoffs? No.
Don't believe so.
No, he didn't.
They were out too quick. So
yeah, that's right.
I'm out on Reynaldo Lopez. The only place I was even considering taking him was I just did a mock draft with the Roto World guys. And they were using Yahoo, and like Yahoo gives you like projected standings. And I was like, the only way I quote unquote win this mock draft is by taking Reynaldo Lopez because their projections are so high on him. Like they have like 170 innings.
You're just gonna manipulate the standings.
I was like, I might just take Reynaldo Lopez just so I can win the quote unquote win this mock draft. But any league where I have money involved, I would not draft Reynaldo Lopez. I'm too scared.
Yeah. I think I'm out too, Joe, and it saddens me, as you can tell by my voice. I do love him. I wish him the best, but I'm not really diving back in on Raylo. What say you of my boy Raylo?
Yeah, he ended the year with a forearm and a shoulder injury within weeks of each other, so that's
just
really
what fantastic.
You want. Just perfect.
That might as well just be whole arm, right?
Right.
Your forearm and your shoulder. Like the only thing in between is your elbow. Like, yeah, that is just like arm destroyed.
Out with a body, just his whole body.
I also think there's like no chance that he repeats, even if he does stay healthy.
Right. And I do agree with that. Even if you guys could grant me tomorrow that, sorry to interrupt you, Joe, that he's fully healthy, ready to go, I still am putting him down for a 3.85 ERA at the best with like a 120 whip. So even the mega fanboy here is not putting Raylo down for any sort of like repeat or anything close to it. That was a magical season, 199 ERA, but a 3.58 SIERA. I'm starting at 3.85 with an ERA projection. So I'm totally with you. I'm also out. Finish your thoughts on Raylo.
Well, there's two numbers that really stand out. It's the 87% strand rate, that's not coming back, and then the home run suppression. Like for his career, 1.2 homer per 9, mixed in as a starter and a reliever, but to go down to 0.66 homer per 9, 7.5% homer to fly ball rate, considering he's still giving up a decent bit of hard contact with a 9% barrel, 43 hard hit, there's no chance that I would draft him. There is no scenario where I would draft Reynaldo Lopez unless he's falling like 100+ picks. He's going in the main at 176. It's not a terrible price, but I think it's just considering the guys we're going to talk about Brandon Pfaadt. I've mentioned that Bradley's kind of interesting. Like we like Seth Lugo, I think generally speaking. Eflin, like there are guys going beyond him that I like quite a bit more. So there's just no reality where I end up with Raylo.
Yep. We're out as a group, and if I'm not in, you probably shouldn't be either, folks. Not because I'm the smartest guy ever, but because I'm the biggest fanboy of this guy ever. All right, Brandon Pfaadt. Justin, I'm going to let you start with him because he's your guy. Dude, I'm so out. I'm sorry. You're going to have to sell me on him. I can't hit. I have no skill whatsoever, but if I went up against him left-handed, I'd get on base. Mans can't get lefties out. Home run machine. He's on a good team. He's not a terrible pitcher. Like I can see if he broke through and found something against lefties, okay, I'll eat crow and say he figured it out. But that is a hurdle that I do not see him getting over right now, and thus I don't really want Brandon Pfaadt. What about you?
Have you seen him pitch in spring?
I have not. Does he have something to get lefties out?
He's added a changeup. He's also changed his delivery. or his arm slot a little bit to give himself a little bit more cut on the fastball. It's not going to solve all the problems, right?
Sure.
There still will be some problems against lefties. However, he's yet to give up a spring home run.
That's nice.
The strikeout rate is, I believe, at around 28%, which is an improvement from where he's been in the majors and closer to where he was as a 30% guy in the minor leagues. In doing this, he has not been walking guys. He's got a 4% walk rate in spring. Yes, I think there is still growth needed against left-handed hitters, but I think you're starting to see it. And I think all of a sudden I think the industry as a whole has been talking about Brandon Pfaadt as this guy like, oh, he's overrated. And I think again,
who's been saying that? Everyone's been loving him.
Oh, really? Every time I go on a podcast, people are like, Brandon Pfaadt sucks.
They just want to make you feel bad for your guy.
And I've been on Pfaadt for a while. Now, I will say, like, James Anderson's been on Pfaadt way longer than me. And he was the guy that I kind of learned about Pfaadt from. But I'm not jumping off. I think Pfaadt is just getting better and better. He's still young. And I think this is a year where he can take another step forward and kind of be the guy that his underlying numbers have said he could be for the last 2 years. And I think the price is fine. Like, now.
It's not a bad price, like 180-ish, right?
Yeah, you're talking about a guy going 183 over the course of the last week in the main event. And like we were just talking about with Kikuchi and who was the other? Pivetta. Like, hey, it's hard to get strikeouts once you get past pick 150. Now you're talking about a guy like Brandon Pfaadt who just threw 181 innings at the major league level. No reason to think he can't do that again. Right. And he did it with a strikeout per inning. And right now in spring training, like I said, he's got a 28% strikeout rate, which would be the best of his career. I think this is the time to jump on Brandon Pfaadt.
Okay, I will say I'm compelled by the changeup in spring. It's hard to keep up on every guy during spring, but that is addressing the biggest issue. We had issues with Brian Wu and Bryce Miller last year that they couldn't get lefties out. They both went out and addressed it. New pitch for Miller specifically with the splitter and alterations to the pitch mix for Brian Wu, and they both took big step forward. So that is on the table for Pfaadt, and that would be very compelling. And I'm moved, even though it's a small sample, by the no homers in spring. So tell you what, like I said, SP update coming very soon. I'll give him a few spots back up because I was in, and then I took it was one of those where like the snap judgment was pretty high on him. And then as I dove deeper, I was like, wait a minute, Mans can't get any lefties out. So I sank him, and now I'll level that back out and move Brandon Pfaadt back up a little bit. Still don't know. Go ahead.
I have Pfaadt as a top 30 starter.
Jesus Christ, Justin. I'm not doing that. Joe, top 30 starter for Brandon Pfaadt? Yes? No?
Justin? I have him in the 40s.
Okay, so you're pretty keen on him too. He's the 52nd pitcher off the board. So I'm up against it here with two Pfaadt lovers. I'm getting Pfaadt. I'm getting beat up.
Yeah,
by a couple of fighters here. Is that what a Brandon Pfaadt fan is? A fighter? I mean, that's pretty easy, right? Okay, so tell us, top 40 pitcher. That's pretty hot.
In the 40s, and he's 43.
Into the 40s, so top 50 pitcher.
Top 50, but I could be persuaded to move him up a little bit. I don't know if I have much to add on to what Justin just laid out. I think that he pretty much nailed it. The lefty problem is a concern. Lefties OPS against was like 820 or so.
9,000. Oh yeah, 820. Okay.
So that's not ideal. But if you look at what he did throughout his time in the minor leagues, like my first year at First Pitch Arizona, Brandon Pfaadt was the talk of the town because he had just come off of leading the entire minor leagues in strikeouts, which was 2022, I believe. And last season, I think he just kind of ran into a wall. Like if you look at the splits in the first and second half ERA 3.97, second half 5.93. I think he just kind of ran out of steam a little bit. Like you said, he's working on pitches. He actually, even with the 4.71 ERA, all of the ERA estimators were about a full run lower. He has good command, good strike.
Yeah, because they pretend he knows how to stifle homers. And they give him credit for pushing up that 65% left. No, I am joking a little bit. But I do think that's where it comes from. It's like he does have a good core, 19% strikeout minus walk for Fought, but then those different ERA indicators will stabilize the home run rate. Others will kind of stabilize the left on base rate, which was 65%. And then all of a sudden you're seeing like, so I see the vision of how he gets to like a mid. Now, top 30 though, that's better than like a mid threes ERA. You got him for like a low threes and a good whip then, right, Justin?
No, because it's volume, right?
Okay.
I have Brandon Fought for 3.75 ERA and a 1.19 whip.
Okay, that's not crazy.
It's not crazy, but when
it's 190 innings that's doing it.
Yeah, I have 175 innings, and like when you're in that area, you're going up against guys like, let me pull up my ranks. You're going up against guys like Robbie Ray and Glass now, and Joe Ryan. And, those are guys. Now George Kirby. Like those are guys you can't reasonably project for 175 innings. Right now, they're better on a per inning basis, and so in a 10 and 12 team league, I'm totally fine taking those guys over, a Brandon Fought. But in a 15 team league, you need that volume. That volume becomes really, really important because it's hard to find that off the wire when guys get hurt.
Sure. No, that's fair. I wasn't sure if you had some gaudy ratios for Fought, but no, you got pretty reasonable ratios.
Yeah, no, I'm not going crazy here.
Okay.
But I think the volume plus the skills growth can make for a really, really interesting pitcher in Brandon Fought.
That changeup could create a breakout if it's there, and because the homers and the lefty issues are one and the same, right? He gives up a lot of homers to lefties, and so the changeup could vanquish both and really send him sky high. So, okay, like I said, I'll give him a few point dip. I can't get up as high as you guys, but he's not off my board as much as he was beforehand. All right, two workhorse types that are pretty similar. And I mentioned this with Seth Lugo a long time ago, and even in a couple different outlets. The market over the last decade has really smartened up on guys like this that break out, and we don't have him as a top 20 starter. I guarantee a decade ago, Seth Lugo would have been a top 20 starter just based on what he did last year, because that's what we do. Eflin and Lugo, two guys that can get a lot of volume. Who do you like better, Justin? And are you drafting either of them?
I'm drafting Eflin everywhere. And I think for me it is Eflin. Now that doesn't mean I dislike Seth Lugo, because I have Eflin 4 spots ahead of Lugo in my ranks. But I just think Eflin is one of those guys that people underrate because they don't care as much about whip for some reason as they do about ERA. And it's still, even with them moving in the walls at Camden, or whatever the hell they're calling it now.
I think it's just Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Yeah, I don't think they have a corporate
It'll
name.
always be Camden for me. I grew up with Camden, so
at least it's not like Johnson Insurance Field at Camden Yards. It's just Oriole Park at Camden
or whatever
Yards.
they're calling Minute Maid now.
Daikon Park,
or
the air conditioning company.
I think I'm 3 naming changes away from US or Comiskey or whatever the White Sox.
Oh yeah. The guaranteed rate.
Okay, thanks.
Kill me with that one. That is so brutal.
Shameless promotion park, whatever it's called now.
Video.com arena.
Yeah, it's just
gross, dude.
All of them are terrible. But yeah, for me, I think Eflin is just one of those perpetually underrated guys. I think Lugo is too. And if you like what I just said about Brandon Fought, then you should love Seth Lugo. Threw 206 innings last year. One of the few guys that you can kind of bank on for 170, 180 innings. And all he did was throw 206 innings with a 3 flat ERA. Now I'm not expecting him to repeat that, but if you don't really care about strikeouts, if you take a bunch of high strikeout guys early, Seth Lugo should be your number 4 starter or number 5 starter, depending on your depth of league, because he gives you such safe ratios. And we talked earlier, or not earlier, but previous episodes about pairing guys, hey, well, if you're going to take this, if you're going to take a Garrett Crochet, you want to pair him with a Framber Valdez kind of guy later. You can skip the Framber Valdez tier and just take Seth Lugo way fucking later. So, I like Seth Lugo a lot. I like Zach Eflin a lot. But if you're going to make me choose, I'm taking Eflin.
Okay, I'm fine with that. And like I said, I like both too. I do think they are as quality bankable volume in a world where that is difficult to guarantee. And of course, either of them could get hurt too. They're both into their 30s. But if you're saying I'm going to get X innings, or you're saying that they're going to be healthy. If you're saying these two guys will stay upright, I'm putting them both down for $180. That's where I'm starting with those two, Zach Eflin and Seth Lugo. And like I said, I really appreciate that the market is not overrating either of these guys, and Lugo specifically coming off the huge breakout. Pick 181 is totally fine, even if you don't believe in anything he did last year. 3 ERA, 109 whip, and you're like, nah, I see the 394 Sierra, and I think it's going to be that with a 120 whip. Okay, that's actually still fine at pick 180. I have no problems with that. Joe, what say you about these two guys here, Zach Eflin and Seth Lugo? I mentioned Lugo at 181. Eflin is at 196, even cheaper. Where do you come out on these two?
Eflin is in a tie for my most rostered player this season.
Nice. I'm with that.
I have him on 35% of my teams. And I think when it comes down to him versus Lugo, Eflin's 5 years younger, and he's also put together a whole season in back-to-back years. I mean, with Lugo, 146 innings, it's not
it's close, but yeah, you're fair point.
Far off. I don't know that the volume is as projectable as we're making it seem. Like, he's probably good for 180. He probably is, but he's been a reliever throughout the majority of his career. He's 35 years old now. I wonder if 206 innings potentially could catch up with him at this age.
That's a good point.
It could just be me who was worried about that a little bit, but also 3 ERA with Sierra, a full run higher. The whips throughout his career have been pretty good, but we're just a year removed from 120. So I don't know that I'm necessarily banking on a 109 whip again. I think that the projections lay it out pretty well here. Like if I'm taking ATC at face value, 396, 124 with a below average strikeout rate, I don't love that. I think Eflin is definitely the pick for me, and it comes down to the whip, the projectable whip. Each of the last 3 seasons, 112, 102, 115. The strikeouts are not going to blow you away. He's probably going to be about average. But I think in terms of volume and in terms of whip and even ERA, I think I can project them all to be lower with Eflin, with more volume. So he would be my pick there.
I will push back on the volume question a little bit on Lugo, only because like 146 wasn't a matter of like, hey, he was injured or missed time. It was he's transitioning from a reliever to a starter,
and that is fair. Now, but I do like Joe's point that the 206 might catch up a little bit, right? Could there be a little bit of a hangover on that? Plus, throw on some playoff innings, although they didn't go super far. Like I can get with that, but I do like your counter.
Give me the guy who has shown, and I'm not saying you should be taking Eflin over Lugo. I'm with Joe on Eflin. Mm-hmm. And Eflin is one of my more rostered pitchers this year too. And so this is not an anti-Eflin take, more just a pro-Lugo take. Like Eflin, like give me the guy in Lugo who has shown he can do 200. Yeah. Right? Like, and like here's a comparison, like, to kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, if you're in my projections, obviously my projections are mine, right? So it has my own personal biases kind of built in. I have Lugo projected for 185 innings. That 185 innings, even with a poor strikeout per 9, like a below 8 strikeout per 9, has him for 161 strikeouts.
Boom. The volume gets him there.
Right? I have Tyler Glasnow for 166 strikeouts.
In 32 innings.
It's 135 innings. So, but this is why, when I talk about like volume matters, and I think, and I do get pushback from people in the industry about like, oh, like some guy, nobody volumes anymore. Like the guys who can volume, they actually have a lot of value now. And I have Glasnow way ahead of Lugo in my rank. So I'm still saying I'm taking Glasnow over Lugo, but relatively speaking, the ADP, like that volume at this point in the draft is massive for your teams.
And that is fair. I think the pushback, because you get pushback from me on that.
Yeah, I know.
It's just that we don't know who's going to do that volume with enough accuracy to leverage that for somebody as a major. That's the main, because you're right. Like if you could tell me who the volume is and guarantee it, then I would draft off of innings pitched.
Yeah,
we're just taking educated guesses. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And I mean, that's all a projection is an educated guess.
Right.
But like, if I was to tell you, of these two pitchers, one is going to hit 200 innings and one is going to hit 130, and I say it's Tyler Glasnow and Seth Lugo.
200 for Glasnow. Okay,
yeah,
never mind.
you're betting the house that it's Lugo, right?
100%.
You're not betting it, yeah, right.
100%. And that is fair.
I think that is the gamble we're talking about.
Right. And we're trying to do probabilities and make smart decisions. So I totally get that.
Again, that's one of those guys like, hey, if I end up with Tyler Glasnow, I'm making sure I'm walking out with a guy like Seth Lugo later.
Yeah, I'll pair the two all day. Yeah. Sign me up for that pairing to make that work there. And I do like seeing my rotation in these little pairings or triplets of guys that kind of mesh with each other very well instead of just going Snell, Glasnow, and Gavin Williams, right? Like I'm really taking some chance there on my volume. So I totally get that. All right. I don't want to be too graphic, but I had Chipotle for lunch, so I have to get going, if you know what I mean, guys. It's great talking with both of you. Joe, great talking with you again this week. Justin, we will be back tomorrow morning, part 5 of 32. We're talking every pitcher that's ever pitched tomorrow. Charlie Huff and the knuckleball. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to do part 5, and we'll speed it up a little bit. We probably won't deep dive everyone, but it's hard not to. Like there's still the list that I have for Justin and I tomorrow morning is still a ton of remarkably compelling guys. So we probably will deep dive all of them. So nobody's complaining. So it's not like we have to rush through these episodes. I'm just saying that
we just got to get most of them done as soon as possible because the season's about to start. Like
this is
a week away.
Biggest draft weekend, and then a lot of people still do draft after the season. So the next 2 weekends. So we'll have it done in the next 3 episodes. So Friday, Monday, and then maybe a Tuesday episode, and then you got them all in before the season starts. Joe, thanks for joining us. Justin, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Take it easy.